My husband died 10 years ago. Every single month since then, I transferred $500 to pay off his debts. But one day, the bank called me. "Mrs. Martin," the woman said, "your husband never had any debts." When I asked where my money went, I already knew the answer, and it broke something inside me. Good day, dear listeners. My name is Anita Martin. I'm 72 years old, and I'm about to tell you how someone I loved like family stole $60,000 from me. How they looked me in the eye at my husband's funeral and lied. How they took advantage of my grief for a decade. But I'm also going to tell you how I fought back, how I won, and how you can too, if this ever happens to you. Please stay with me till the end, and let me know in the comments which city you're listening from. I want to see how far this story travels. Life before that phone call seems like it belonged to a different person. My name is Anita Martin. I'm 72 years old, and for the past 10 years I've been living alone in our old house here in Sacramento. My husband Raymond died of a heart attack back in 2015, leaving me with memories, his reading glasses still on the nightstand, and what I believed was a mountain of debt. Raymond had always handled our finances. I trusted him completely. We'd been married 43 years. He managed the checkbook, paid the bills, dealt with the bank. I was a school secretary for 20 years, but at home, money matters were his domain. So when he died, I felt lost in more ways than one. 3 days after we buried Raymond, his cousin Diana showed up at my door. I can still see her standing there on my porch. She was wearing a black dress, her eyes red from crying. Diana was 50 years old then, and we'd always been close. She'd been in our wedding party. She'd visited Raymond in the hospital during his final days, holding his hand, telling him everything would be okay. "Anita," she said, pulling me into a hug. "I need to talk to you about something important. Can I come in?" We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Raymond used to read the morning paper. Diana took my hands in hers. "I don't know how to tell you this," she began, "but Raymond borrowed heavily from the bank before he died. There are debts, significant debts." My heart stopped. "What? How much?" "Enough that the bank could come after this house." She squeezed my hands tighter. "But Anita, listen to me. I can help you. I have connections at First National Bank. If you send me $500 every month, I'll make sure it gets to the right people. They'll work with us. We can keep you in this house." I was numb with grief. I couldn't think straight. Everything felt like it was happening underwater. "Why would Raymond do that?" I whispered. "Why wouldn't he tell me?" Diana's eyes filled with tears. "Men have their pride, honey. He probably thought he could handle it. He probably thought he had more time." She pulled out papers from her purse, documents with official-looking letterheads, numbers I couldn't focus on through my tears. She spread them across the table, pointing to amounts and dates. It all looked legitimate, but I was so overwhelmed, so broken by losing Raymond, that I didn't read them carefully. I just believed her. $500 a month, Diana repeated. "I know it's not easy on your pension and Social Security, but it's manageable, right? Better than losing the house Raymond loved." What choice did I have? This was Raymond's cousin, family, someone who'd wept at his funeral just days before. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." And that's how it started. $500, every single month, for 10 years. I won't lie to you, it wasn't easy. My widow's pension and Social Security weren't much to begin with. To afford that $500, I had to cut everything. I stopped my book club membership to save the monthly fee. I quit buying meat except on sale. I started shopping at discount grocery stores, clipping coupons like my life depended on it. There were other sacrifices too. My granddaughter Emma got accepted to college in 2018. She needed help with tuition. I wanted so badly to give her something, anything, but I couldn't. That $500 had to go to Raymond's debt. I postponed dental work. My teeth ached sometimes, but dentists are expensive. The roof started leaking in the spare bedroom. I put a bucket under it and told myself I'd fix it later when the debt was paid off. Every month, like clockwork, I'd drive to Western Union and wire the money to Diana's account. Every month she'd text me, "Received, you're doing great, Anita. We're getting there." 10 years, 120 payments, $60,000. I never questioned it. Why would I? Diana was family. When you're grieving, When you're alone in a house that feels too big without the person who made it home, you cling to the people who seem to care. I had no idea I was clinging to a liar. Last Tuesday changed everything. It was a normal morning. I was making coffee in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Raymond used to sit and read the Sacramento Bee every morning for 40 years. The coffee maker was gurgling, filling the house with that familiar smell, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. These days, it's always someone trying to sell me car insurance or telling me my computer has a virus. But something made me pick up. "Mrs. Martin?" A woman's voice, professional and clear. "This is Catherine Reed from First National Bank. I'm calling about your late husband's account." My heart dropped into my stomach. Had I missed a payment? Had Diana forgotten to send it through? "Yes, this is Anita Martin," I said, gripping the kitchen counter. "Mrs. Martin, I'm looking at our records here, and I need to clarify something with you. We've never had any outstanding loans or debts associated with your husband Raymond Martin's account. In fact, his accounts were closed and settled within weeks of his passing in 2015. There's nothing owed to this institution." The coffee pot stopped dripping. The kitchen went completely silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. "What?" I whispered. "You're not in debt to us, ma'am," Catherine repeated, her voice gentle now, like she could sense something was wrong. "You never were. Is there a reason you're asking about this now?" My legs felt weak. I pulled out one of the kitchen chairs and sat down heavily. "I've been making payments," I said, my voice shaking. "For 10 years. Someone told me Raymond had debts." "Payments to whom, Mrs. Martin?" That's when it hit me. Really hit me. Not to the bank. Never to the bank. To Diana. "Mrs. Martin, are you still there?" "I need to go," I managed to say, and I hung up. I sat there at that kitchen table for I don't know how long. Maybe minutes. Maybe an hour. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clasp them together in my lap. $60,000. 10 years of sacrifice. The vacations I didn't take. The gifts I couldn't give my grandchildren. The dental work I postponed because I needed that $500 every month for Raymond's debt. There was no debt. There had never been any debt. I stood up slowly and walked to my bedroom. At the back of my dresser drawer, I kept all the important papers. Every single Western Union receipt, filed neatly by year. Every text message from Diana, which I'd screenshot and printed out because I'm not good with technology and I wanted records. I pulled them all out and spread them across my bed. "Received, you're doing great, Anita. Almost there. Payment confirmed. Raymond would be so proud of you. Just got it. Thank you for being so responsible about this." My vision blurred with tears, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were something else entirely, something hot and sharp and angry. Who else knew? Was Diana alone in this? Or had others been laughing behind my back at family gatherings all these years? I picked up my phone again with trembling fingers. I needed answers. I spread all the Western Union receipts across my dining table, 120 of them, like a paper trail of my own foolishness. My reading glasses kept slipping down my nose as I calculated, recalculated, hoping somehow I'd been wrong. $60,000. The number stared back at me from my calculator, unchanging and cruel. That money could have paid for Emma's college tuition. It could have fixed the roof that still leaks in the corner of the spare bedroom. It could have been the European trip Raymond and I always planned but never took. Instead, it had gone into Diana's pockets. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea to calm my nerves and tried to think clearly. At 72, I'm not the sharp young woman I used to be, but I'm not senile either. I raised 3 children, managed a household, worked 20 years as a school secretary. I know how to organize, how to plan, how to solve problems. The question was, what exactly was I dealing with? I pulled out my laptop, the one my son David bought me 2 Christmases ago. My fingers moved slowly over the keyboard as I logged into my email. I searched for anything from First National Bank. There it was. The estate settlement notice from 2015, clearly stating that all of Raymond's accounts had been settled with no outstanding obligations. I'd received this email. I'd read it. But then Diana had come to me with those papers, and I'd what? Chosen to believe family over a corporate email? Assumed there was something the bank wasn't telling me? I'd been grieving and vulnerable, and she'd known it. She'd used it. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. "Hi, Anita, just checking in. Did this month's payment go through okay? Haven't seen it yet. The audacity. The absolute audacity. My first instinct was to call her immediately, to scream, to demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was all those years of watching Law and Order with Raymond. Or maybe it was just common sense finally kicking in. If I confronted her now, she'd have time to prepare, to hide evidence, to spin a story. I needed to be smarter than that. I texted back. "Sorry, Diana, had some issues with Western Union. We'll send it tomorrow." Her response came within seconds. "No worries. These things happen. Take your time." That heart emoji made my stomach turn. I stood up and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the garden Raymond had planted. The roses he'd loved were blooming red and defiant against the spring sky. What would he say if he knew? Raymond, who'd trusted his cousin, who'd invited her to every family event, who'd lent her money when she claimed her car had broken down. He'd be furious. He'd demand justice. And so would I. I sat back down and opened a new document on my computer. At the top, I typed, "Evidence." Below it, I started listing everything. 1. Bank confirms. No debt existed. 2. 120 payments of $500 to Diana equals $60,000. 3. Western Union receipts, all saved. 4. Text messages from Diana, printed copies. 5. Original documents Diana showed me. Where are these? That last point bothered me. Where were those papers Diana had shown me in 2015? I'd been so overwhelmed by grief that I'd just handed them back to her, trusting she'd handle everything. I'd never kept copies. That was my first mistake. I wouldn't make another. I picked up my phone and called my son David in Portland. He's a software engineer, 45 years old, practical and level-headed. He answered on the third ring. "Mom, everything okay?" "David, I need your help with something," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "It's complicated, and I don't want you to worry, but I need to ask you about legal matters." There was a pause. "Legal matters? Mom, what's going on?" I took a deep breath. "If someone has been taking money from you under false pretenses for years, what's that called legally?" Another pause, longer this time. "That's fraud, Mom. Potentially wire fraud if it crossed state lines. Why? Who's been taking money from you?" "I need to be sure first," I said. "Before I say anything to anyone, I need to gather evidence. Can you help me understand what I'd need to prove it?" "Mom, you're scaring me." "I'm fine, honey. I promise. I just need to know. If I have receipts showing I sent money, and messages from someone acknowledging they received it, and proof that the reason they gave me was false, is that enough?" David's voice was careful now. "It's a start. But Mom, seriously, I'll explain everything soon," I interrupted. "But first, I need to make a plan. Can you email me information about fraud? What evidence matters? What I should document?" "I'll do better than that," David said, his voice firm in a way that reminded me so much of his father. "I'm coming down this weekend." "No, David, you don't need to." "Mom," he cut me off. "I'm coming. We'll figure this out together." After we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in 10 years. Not alone. David arrived Friday evening. He'd driven 5 hours straight from Portland without stopping. I'd made his favorite pot roast, but neither of us had much appetite as I laid everything out on the dining table. The receipts, the printed texts, the bank's email. He went very quiet as he read through it all. Then he looked up at me, his jaw clenched in a way that reminded me so much of Raymond. "Aunt Diana did this to you?" "I need to be absolutely certain before I accuse her," I said, though my hands trembled as I poured us both coffee. "I need proof that those papers she showed me were fake. I need to know if anyone else was involved." David pulled out his laptop. "First thing Monday, we're going to the bank in person. We'll get official documentation. Then we're talking to a lawyer." That weekend felt like the longest of my life. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Diana's face at Raymond's funeral, her hand on my shoulder, her voice so full of false concern. How long had she planned this? Had she waited for Raymond to die, or had she been scheming even before? Monday morning, David and I walked into First National Bank at exactly 9 o'clock. Catherine Reed, the woman who'd called me, met us in a small conference room. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes that sharpened when David explained why we were there. "Mrs. Martin," she said after pulling up Raymond's account history on her computer, "I'm going to be very direct with you. Your husband had no loans with us. Ever. In fact, his credit was excellent. When he passed, there was a small checking account and a savings account, both of which were transferred to you as the beneficiary. The estate was settled cleanly. Can you give us documentation of that? David asked. Absolutely. Catherine printed out several pages, account statements, the estate settlement, everything. Then she leaned forward, her expression serious. Mrs. Martin, if someone has been telling you otherwise and taking money from you, that's fraud. You should file a police report. We will, David said firmly. But first, we need to establish a complete picture of what happened. After the bank, we went to see a lawyer David had found online, Robert Thompson, a man in his mid-50s who specialized in elder fraud. His office was in a modern building downtown, very different from the small-town lawyers I was used to. Thompson listened to everything without interrupting. Then he leaned back in his chair and looked at me directly. Anita, what was done to you is textbook financial exploitation. In California, this is both a civil and criminal matter. You could press charges, and you could sue for the return of your money plus damages. Will I get it back? I asked. The money? Thompson was careful with his words. That depends on whether Diana has assets. But yes, you have a very strong case. The question is, do you want to pursue this criminally, civilly, or both? I thought about all those years, all those sacrifices, that heart emoji after every payment. Both, I said firmly. Thompson nodded with what looked like approval. Then here's what we do. First, we document everything, and I mean everything. Second, we need to find out if Diana acted alone or if others were involved. Third, we file a police report, but Anita, don't contact Diana yet. Don't let her know what you know. It was already too late for that. That evening, as David and I were reviewing documents at my kitchen table, my phone rang. It was my daughter Sarah, calling from Phoenix. Mom, Diana just called me, Sarah said, her voice confused. She said you went to the bank today asking questions about Dad's estate. She sounded, I don't know, nervous. She wanted to know if you were okay, if you were confused about something. What's going on? My blood ran cold. Someone at the bank must have mentioned my visit. Or maybe Diana had contacts there. Sacramento's not that big of a city. Everyone knows everyone. David saw my face change. What is it? I put the phone on speaker. Sarah, what exactly did Diana say? She said she was worried about you, that grief can make people remember things incorrectly, and that if you had questions about Dad's debts, she could help clarify things. She sounded really concerned, but also kind of pushy. She wanted me to have you call her right away. Don't tell her anything, David said immediately. Mom's fine. We're just sorting through some old paperwork. After Sarah hung up, David and I looked at each other. She knows, I said quietly. She knows I'm investigating. Good, David said, his voice hard. Let her worry. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. Diana. My hand froze over the phone. David immediately said, Don't answer it. But I did. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear her voice now that I knew the truth. Maybe I wanted to see if I could detect the lies I'd missed for 10 years. Anita! Diana's voice was bright, forcedly cheerful. I've been trying to reach you. Sarah said you went to the bank. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, Diana, I said calmly. Just reviewing some old paperwork. Oh, good. You had me worried there for a minute. You know, at our age, sometimes things get confusing. If you have questions about Raymond's debts, I have all the documentation. I can bring it over. Actually, Diana, I interrupted, the bank told me something interesting. Silence on the other end. They said Raymond never had any debts. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. When Diana spoke again, her voice had changed. The sweetness was strained. Well, they must be mistaken. You know how banks are. Records get mixed up. They showed me the estate settlement. I said everything was paid and closed in 2015. Another pause. Longer this time. Anita, I think you're confused. I've been helping you all these years. Maybe you should... Where did my $60,000 go, Diana? What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. Where is my money? Her voice turned cold. You should be very careful about making accusations, Anita. Very careful. You're an elderly woman living alone. People might think you're suffering from dementia. Making up stories. Is that a threat? David grabbed the phone from my hand and put it on speaker. "Aunt Diana." His voice was flat, emotionless. Diana's tone shifted again, attempting warmth. "David, oh, thank God you're there. Your mother is very confused right now. She needs help. Maybe you should talk to her doctor about—" "The only thing my mother needs," David said, cutting her off, "is her $60,000 back. We've filed a police report. You'll be contacted for questioning." The silence this time was absolute. When Diana spoke again, all pretense was gone. Her voice was ice. "You're making a huge mistake. Both of you. I have lawyers. I have documentation. I have witnesses who will say your mother was fully aware of every payment, that she was paying back money Raymond borrowed from me personally, not the bank. This is family business, and if you drag it through the courts, you'll look like ungrateful—" David hung up. I sat down at the kitchen table. My legs were shaking. My heart was pounding. "She's going to fight this," I said quietly. "Of course she is," David said. "She's a thief, and thieves don't go quietly. But, Mom, we have the truth on our side." The next morning, Thursday, things escalated. Sarah called from Phoenix, upset. "Mom, I just got off the phone with Diana. She's saying you're accusing her of stealing from you, that you're sick and confused. She's calling everyone in the family." "I'm not confused, Sarah," I said, exhausted. "I'm being defrauded." "But Diana said—" "Diana has been taking $500 a month from me for 10 years, I interrupted, under the pretense that Raymond had bank debts. The bank confirms no such debts existed. I have proof." Sarah went quiet. "Oh my God." "She's trying to turn the family against me before the truth comes out," I explained. "Don't believe her." But the damage was already being done. Over the next 2 days, I received calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, second cousins, Raymond's old work friends, all of them concerned about my mental state. Diana had been busy spinning her narrative. The devoted cousin helping her confused elderly relative, now being unfairly accused. Wednesday afternoon, David drove me to the Sacramento Police Department. The detective who took my statement was a tired-looking man named James Williams. He'd probably heard 1,000 sad stories just like mine. Except mine wasn't just sad. It was theft. I showed him everything. The bank statements, Thompson's documentation, the receipts, the text messages. Detective Williams' expression grew grimmer as he read through it all. "Mrs. Martin," he said, "I'll be honest with you. These cases can be complicated. Family financial exploitation often comes down to he said, she said. But you've done something very smart. You've documented everything. That helps tremendously." "What happens now?" I asked. "I'll open an investigation. We'll contact Diana Foster for questioning. I should warn you, though, she'll probably lawyer up immediately, and this could take time." "I have time," I said. "I'm 72, not dead." David squeezed my hand. 2 days later, Thompson called with news. "Anita, I did some preliminary research on Diana Foster. Did you know she filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago?" My stomach dropped. "No, I had no idea." "She's in serious financial trouble," Thompson continued. "Has been for years. She's currently being sued by 2 credit card companies. Your money wasn't going to pay off imaginary debts, Anita. It was keeping her afloat." I sat down heavily. $60,000 feeding Diana's lifestyle while I ate day-old bread and skipped medications to save money. "There's something else," Thompson said, and I could hear the anger in his voice now. "I found property records. Diana owns a vacation condo in Lake Tahoe, purchased in 2017, 2 years into your payments." That's when I knew this wasn't desperation. This was calculated, deliberate theft. "The title," Thompson continued, "is in both names, Diana Foster and Michael Foster, her husband." My breath caught. "Michael knew?" "The property is in both their names, Anita. He's not just complicit. He's an accomplice." I thought about Michael. Quiet Michael, who'd sat at my dinner table, who'd hugged me at Raymond's funeral, who'd sent Christmas cards every year. Both of them. They'd both been stealing from me, and I was going to make sure they both paid for every single dollar. Friday afternoon, 3 days after we filed the police report, I was in the garden pruning Raymond's roses when my phone buzzed. The doorbell camera David had installed showed Diana's car pulling into my driveway. My heart started racing. David had gone back to Portland that morning for work obligations. I was alone. Diana got out of her car. She was wearing a cream pantsuit, her makeup perfect, her face composed. She rang the doorbell 3 times. I didn't answer. Through my phone, I watched her walk around to the backyard gate. "Anita," she called out. "I know you're here. Your car's in the driveway. We need to talk." I set down my pruning shears and faced her through the fence, keeping the gate between us. "My lawyer advised me not to speak with you," I said. Diana laughed, but it sounded forced. "Your lawyer? Anita, this is ridiculous. We're family. We can work this out without lawyers and police. You stole $60,000 from me." "I didn't steal anything." Her voice rose. "I helped you. All these years I've been helping you, and this is the thanks I get? You're going to humiliate me? Humiliate our whole family because you can't keep your facts straight?" "The facts are perfectly straight," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You lied about debts that didn't exist. You took money under false pretenses. That's fraud, Diana." Her face flushed red. "You have no idea what you're doing. If you push this, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I'll tell them how you neglected Raymond in his final years, how you refused to help family members in need, how you're a bitter old woman who—" "Get off my property," I said quietly. But Diana wasn't done. She was unraveling now, her perfect composure cracking. "I was desperate," she shouted. "Do you understand that? Michael lost his job. We were drowning in debt. We were about to lose everything. And you had this house, your pension, your comfortable life. You didn't need that money like I did." My hand tightened on the fence post. "So you decided to steal it?" "I was going to pay you back." Diana's eyes were wild now. "That's why I kept taking it. I was trying to get stable enough to pay you back. But then you went to the bank. You started this investigation. You got lawyers involved. You've ruined everything." "I ruined everything?" My voice was louder now. "You lied to me at my husband's funeral. You took advantage of my grief for 10 years. You watched me struggle while you bought a vacation home." Diana stepped closer to the fence. "You think you're so righteous? You're going to destroy my family. My children will suffer because of you. Michael could lose everything. And for what? Money you didn't even need?" "I didn't need it?" I was shaking now, but not with fear, with rage. I couldn't help my granddaughter with college. I couldn't fix my roof. I couldn't afford to go to the dentist. I ate pasta for dinner 4 nights a week so I could send you that money. Money you told me was saving my house. "Oh, please," Diana sneered. "You got to keep your precious house, didn't you? You should be thanking me." That's when I knew. This woman felt no remorse, no guilt, only anger at being caught. "You're going to regret this, Anita," Diana said, her voice low and threatening. "I promise you that. When this is over, you'll have nothing. No family, no one. They'll all see what you really are." "Get off my property." Diana stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to her car. She didn't storm off. She walked slowly, deliberately, like she wanted me to know she wasn't afraid. Her car pulled away with a screech of tires. I stood there in the garden, surrounded by Raymond's roses, and for the first time since this began, I felt genuinely afraid. But I also felt something else. Absolutely certain I was doing the right thing. I went inside, locked all the doors, and called Thompson. "She came to your house?" His voice was sharp. "That's witness intimidation. Document it. Write down everything she said right now while it's fresh." I did. Every word, every threat. Then I took 2 aspirin and sat in Raymond's favorite chair. This was harder than I'd expected, but I wasn't stopping. I took 3 days to recover. This emotional battle was taking its toll, and I needed to gather my strength. David called every morning and evening, checking on me. Sarah flew in from Phoenix for the weekend, apologetic and furious once I showed her all the evidence. My youngest son, James, who lives in Seattle, sent flowers with a card that simply said, "I'm proud of you, Mom." But the real support came from an unexpected place. Sunday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. Through the camera, I saw Eleanor Hayes, my neighbor of 15 years. Eleanor was 81, sharp as a tack, and had been widowed even longer than I had. She was holding a casserole dish. "I heard," she said simply when I opened the door. "The whole neighborhood's been talking about it. That woman had some nerve showing up here shouting at you." I hadn't realized anyone had witnessed Diana's visit. You saw that? I asked. Heard it from my kitchen window, Eleanor said, walking past me into the house like she owned the place. Also heard you tell her to get off your property. Good for you, Anita. Now I brought chicken pot pie, and we're going to talk. Over the next hour, Eleanor told me something I hadn't known. She'd been scammed by her own nephew 5 years ago. A different scheme, but the same betrayal. Family taking advantage of grief and trust. I got my money back, Eleanor said firmly. Took 2 years and a court battle, but I got every penny. And you will too, if you don't let them break you. Did your family turn against you? I asked quietly. Some did, Eleanor admitted. The ones who were either in on it or too cowardly to face the truth. But the ones who mattered stayed. Your Sarah came all the way from Phoenix. Your boys are supporting you. That's what matters, Anita. She was right. I wasn't alone. That evening, Detective Williams called. Mrs. Martin, we contacted Diana Foster for questioning. She came in with a lawyer and declined to make a statement. But here's the interesting part. Her lawyer tried to offer a settlement. My heart jumped. What kind of settlement? They're willing to pay you $10,000 to drop the investigation and sign a non-disclosure agreement. $10,000 out of 60. That's an admission of guilt, I said. Exactly what it is, Williams agreed. But Mrs. Martin, I have to tell you, if you accept any settlement, we can't continue the criminal investigation. I didn't hesitate. I'm not accepting anything. I want my money back, all of it, and I want her held accountable. Good, Williams said, and I could hear the approval in his voice. I was hoping you'd say that. Monday morning, Diana's lawyer called Thompson. Thompson called me afterward, sounding both amused and disgusted. They've increased the offer to $25,000, he reported. Plus, they're claiming that you verbally agreed to help Diana with her financial difficulties, that the payments were voluntary gifts, not fraud. That's a lie, I said, my voice cold. Of course it's a lie, but they're trying to muddy the waters. They're also threatening to countersue for defamation if you continue to slander Diana to family members. I felt a cold calm settle over me. Let them try. Anita, I need to be clear with you about what's ahead, Thompson said seriously. This could get uglier before it gets better. They're going to attack your credibility, your memory, your mental capacity. They might drag your children into depositions. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Raymond's roses blooming faithfully every year. I thought about the roof I couldn't fix, the vacations I couldn't take, the dental work I'd postponed. I thought about my granddaughter Emma, who'd taken out student loans because I couldn't help her. I'm prepared, I said. Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after we'd filed the police report, 3 people showed up at my door. The doorbell camera showed Diana, her husband Michael, and Raymond's brother Harold. Diana looked tired, less polished than usual. Michael stood beside her, uncomfortable in his suit. Harold, whom I hadn't seen since Raymond's funeral, looked embarrassed. Against my better judgment, and Thompson's explicit instructions, I opened the door, but I didn't invite them in. What do you want? I asked, keeping my hand on the door frame. To apologize, Harold said. Anita, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Can we please come in and discuss this like adults? Like family? No, I said simply. Michael shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Martin, this has gotten out of hand. Lawyers, police. It's tearing the family apart. Diana tore the family apart when she stole from me, I replied. Nobody stole anything. Diana's voice cracked. I was helping you. Yes, maybe I should have been clearer about the arrangement. Maybe I should have given you better documentation. But I was trying to protect you, to make things easier. By lying about debts that didn't exist, I interrupted. Harold stepped forward. Anita, Raymond wouldn't have wanted this. He wouldn't have wanted his wife and his cousin fighting in court, destroying the family. That struck a nerve, and they saw it. They'd brought Harold specifically for this, to invoke Raymond's memory, to make me feel guilty. Raymond wouldn't have wanted his cousin stealing from his widow either, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Diana's composure was cracking now. You know what? Fine. I used some of that money for my own expenses. I was in a difficult financial situation, and I thought you wouldn't miss it. You have your pension, your Social Security, this house. I was drowning in debt. I was about to lose everything. So you decided to take my everything instead, I said. I was going to pay you back. Diana's eyes were wild now. That's why I kept taking the money. I was trying to get stable enough to pay you back. But then you went to the bank. You started this investigation. You got lawyers involved. You've ruined everything. Michael grabbed Diana's arm. Diana, stop talking. But she couldn't stop. Do you know what you've done? They're going to take my condo, my car, everything I've worked for. And for what? You'll never see that money anyway. It's gone. I spent it keeping my life together while you sat in this big house feeling sorry for yourself. Get off my property, I said, my voice ice cold. All of you. Harold tried once more. Anita, please. If you drop this, we can work out a payment plan. Diana will pay you back over time. With what money? I asked. She just said it's all gone. We'll figure something out, Michael pleaded. Please, we have 3 kids. If she goes to jail, she should have thought about that before she stole $60,000 from me. Diana's face twisted with rage and desperation. You self-righteous. You think you're so noble, so victimized? You're just a bitter old woman with nothing better to do than destroy people's lives. I'm the victim of fraud, I said calmly. And you're a thief. Those are facts, not opinions. You'll regret this, Diana screamed as Michael tried to pull her back toward their car. I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. I'll tell them how you turned your back on family. Diana, let's go. Michael practically dragged her to the car. Harold lingered on my doorstep. She's desperate, Anita. Desperate people do desperate things. Please reconsider. Desperate people should have reconsidered before committing crimes, I said, and closed the door. Through the window, I watched them drive away. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. These were people I'd known for decades. People at my wedding, at Raymond's funeral. But I felt clearer than ever. I called Thompson immediately and told him everything. Anita, that's a confession, he said excitedly. An angry, unfiltered confession. Do you have any of it recorded? The doorbell camera has audio, I remembered suddenly. Save that footage immediately. Don't delete it. Don't let it record over. This is exactly what we need. The court date arrived 6 weeks later, on a gray October morning. This wasn't a criminal trial yet. That would come later if the district attorney decided to prosecute. This was a civil hearing for my lawsuit seeking restitution. Thompson had explained that this was our chance to present evidence, to force Diana to defend herself under oath. David flew in from Portland. Sarah drove up from Phoenix. Even James came from Seattle. My children sat behind me in the courtroom, a wall of support. Across the aisle, Diana sat with her lawyer, Bradford Hayes, an expensive attorney she clearly couldn't afford. Her face was pale, and she wouldn't look at me. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Patricia Brennan. Thompson had told me she had a reputation for having zero tolerance for elder fraud. Mr. Thompson, you may begin, Judge Brennan said. Thompson stood, composed and professional. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of financial exploitation. Mrs. Anita Martin, a widow, was told by the defendant that her deceased husband had outstanding bank debts. For 10 years, Mrs. Martin sent $500 monthly to the defendant, a total of $60,000, believing she was paying off these debts. In reality, no such debts existed. The defendant knew this and accepted the money anyway. He presented the bank statements first, the estate documents, the Western Union receipts. Every piece of evidence we'd gathered, laid out methodically, undeniably. Then came the doorbell camera footage. The courtroom went silent as Diana's voice filled the room through the speakers. I used some of that money for my own expenses. I thought you wouldn't miss it. I was drowning in debt. I was about to lose everything. I watched Diana's face crumble as she heard her own words played back. Hayes stood quickly. Your Honor, my client was under extreme emotional duress during that encounter. Your client confessed to taking money under false pretenses, Judge Brennan interrupted coolly. Continue, Mr. Thompson. Thompson called Detective Williams to testify about the investigation. Then he called Catherine Reed from the bank, who confirmed under oath that Raymond Martin had never had any outstanding loans or debts. His credit had been excellent. Finally, Thompson called me. I walked to the witness stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. At 72, I'd never been in a courtroom like this before, but I wasn't nervous. I'd lived this nightmare for 10 years. Now I was finally telling the truth. Mrs. Martin, Thompson began gently, can you describe what happened after your husband's death? I told the story from the beginning. Diana's visit right after the funeral, the papers she'd shown me, the decade of payments, the sacrifices I'd made. I postponed dental work, I said, my voice steady. I canceled the book club membership I'd had for 15 years. I told my granddaughter I couldn't help with her college tuition, even though I wanted to more than anything. I looked directly at Diana. I trusted her. She was family. She'd been at my wedding. She held my husband's hand when he was dying. How could I not trust her? Diana was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who'd been caught. Hayes cross-examined me, trying to suggest I'd been confused, that maybe I'd misunderstood Diana's intentions, that perhaps the payments had been voluntary family assistance. Mr. Hayes, I said calmly, I'm 72, not senile. I know the difference between helping family and being lied to. Diana told me my husband had debts. The bank says he didn't. That's not confusion. That's fraud. Then Diana was called to testify. She took the stand reluctantly. Under Hayes's gentle questioning, she tried to paint herself as a victim too, financially desperate, trying to help family while struggling herself, never meaning to deceive anyone. Thompson's cross-examination destroyed her. So you're saying Mrs. Martin knew the money wasn't going to the bank? He asked. She must have known. Must have. Did you explicitly tell her the money was for your personal use and not for bank debts? It was complicated. Yes or no, Miss Foster? Did you tell your cousin that her husband had no bank debts and that you needed money for yourself? Diana's silence lasted too long. No, she finally whispered. And did you show Mrs. Martin fake documents suggesting debts existed? They weren't fake. I was trying to help her understand. Understand what? A lie? Hayes objected, but the damage was done. Diana was unraveling on the stand, contradicting herself, unable to maintain her story under pressure. Thompson presented one final piece of evidence. Diana's bank records, subpoenaed by Detective Williams. They showed deposits of $500, regular as clockwork, for 10 years. They also showed purchases at luxury stores, vacations to Hawaii, the down payment on the Lake Tahoe condo. Your Honor, Thompson said, the evidence is overwhelming. Diana Foster systematically defrauded an elderly widow of $60,000 through lies and fabricated documents. She spent this money on personal luxuries while Mrs. Martin sacrificed basic necessities. We ask that the court order full restitution plus punitive damages and legal fees. Judge Brennan removed her glasses and looked directly at Diana. Miss Foster, I've presided over many cases of financial abuse. This is one of the most calculated and callous I've seen. You exploited your cousin's grief, her trust, and her isolation. You invented debts that didn't exist. You accepted money for a decade while watching her struggle, knowing she was sacrificing to pay you. Hayes started to speak, but Judge Brennan held up her hand. I'm not finished. The evidence presented here is not only sufficient for a civil judgment, it suggests criminal fraud. I'm ordering you to pay full restitution of $60,000, plus $30,000 in punitive damages, plus Mrs. Martin's legal fees. Additionally, I'm forwarding this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution consideration. Diana collapsed in her chair, sobbing. I felt David's hand on my shoulder. Sarah was crying quietly behind me. It was over. I'd won. 2 weeks after the civil verdict, Detective Williams called. Mrs. Martin, the DA reviewed the case. They're moving forward with criminal charges, wire fraud, elder abuse, and theft. Diana Foster will be arraigned next month. What does that mean for her? I asked. If convicted, she's looking at several years in prison, maybe 5 to 7, given the amount and duration of the fraud. The arraignment was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in November. I planned to attend, but Diana never showed up. Thompson called me that afternoon, his voice tight. Anita, Diana didn't appear for her arraignment. The judge issued a bench warrant. What does that mean? It means she's a fugitive. They're looking for her. My stomach dropped. After everything, she was running? 3 days later, Detective Williams called with news. We found her, he said. LAX airport. She and Michael were trying to board a one-way flight to Mexico. I sat down heavily. Mexico? Both arrested. Flight risk proves consciousness of guilt, Anita. She just made her case significantly worse. Fleeing before a criminal trial, the judge won't look kindly on that. The criminal trial came 3 months later, in January. But there was no trial, not really. Diana's lawyer convinced her to plead guilty. The prosecution had too much evidence. The bank records, my receipts, the doorbell camera confession, her courtroom testimony, and now the attempted flight to Mexico. The sentencing hearing was on a cold morning. I attended, sitting in the same courtroom where I'd won the civil case. Diana stood before Judge Brennan in an orange jumpsuit. She looked 20 years older than the polished woman who'd shown up at my house. Her hair was unwashed. Her face was gaunt. "Miss Foster," Judge Brennan said, "you have pleaded guilty to wire fraud and elder abuse. Do you have anything to say before I impose sentence?" Diana turned to look at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. "I'm sorry, Anita," she said, her voice hollow. "I was desperate. I made terrible choices. I never meant for it to go this far. I'm sorry." I said nothing. Apologies didn't return 10 years of my life. Judge Brennan sentenced her to 5 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 3. Michael Foster, as an accomplice who'd benefited from the fraud, received 2 years. As the bailiff led Diana away, she looked back at me one more time. I kept my face expressionless. Justice had been served. By March, I'd received $76,000, the full restitution, plus most of the punitive damages. Thompson's fees had been paid from the judgment as ordered. The remaining money would come from Diana's ongoing wage garnishment, even from her prison job. But something unexpected happened with that money. I didn't need it the way I once had. My children were established in their careers. My grandchildren were mostly grown. The house was paid off. My retirement income was sufficient for my needs. So I made a decision. I donated $20,000 to the Sacramento Senior Advocacy Center, the organization that had reached out to me during my case. They used it to create a legal aid fund for elderly victims of financial fraud. They named it the Raymond Martin Justice Fund in honor of my husband. I gave $15,000 to Emma, my granddaughter, to help pay off her student loans. She cried when I handed her the check, saying she couldn't accept it. I told her it was money that should have gone to her education in the first place. I took David, Sarah, and James, along with their families, on a trip to Europe. The vacation Raymond and I had always planned, but never took. We spent 2 weeks traveling through Italy. In Tuscany, in a beautiful garden overlooking rolling hills, we scattered some of Raymond's ashes. He'd always wanted to see Italy. That trip cost $20,000, and it was worth every penny. The rest I kept in a savings account. For emergencies, for small pleasures, for life. Meanwhile, Diana's world had completely crumbled. The Lake Tahoe condo was seized and sold at auction. The proceeds, $43,000, went into the escrow account for my restitution. Her luxury SUV was repossessed. Another $8,000. Tom filed for divorce while she was in prison. He claimed he hadn't known about the fraud, that Diana had hidden it from him. He wanted to protect what assets remained before they could be seized. Diana's children stopped speaking to her. Her daughter posted on Facebook about parents who lie and destroy everything. The post went viral in our local community. Everyone knew. Diana served 3 years before being paroled. When she was released, she moved to a small apartment in a rough part of Sacramento. Her real estate license had been revoked due to her fraud conviction. She found work at a discount grocery store, stocking shelves. Every paycheck was garnished. Her credit was destroyed. Her reputation was destroyed. Her family was destroyed. I heard all of this through Eleanor, my neighbor, who somehow knew everything that happened in Sacramento. I felt no pity, just the cold satisfaction of complete accountability. A year after the verdict, my life looked completely different. I used part of the settlement money to finally fix the roof. No more bucket in the spare bedroom during rainstorms. I renovated Raymond's garden, adding new rose varieties he would have loved. A climbing rose called New Dawn. A hybrid tea rose called Double Delight. Every morning I had my coffee there, surrounded by blooms and birdsong. My relationship with my children deepened. David started visiting monthly, sometimes bringing his kids. Sarah and I took a cooking class together in Sacramento, Italian cuisine, inspired by our trip. James and I started a tradition of weekly video calls where he'd teach me about new technology and I'd tell him stories about his father. Emma graduated from college debt-free and sent me a photo of her diploma with a note. "This is because of you, Grandma. Thank you for fighting." I rejoined the book club I'd quit 10 years ago to save money. The women there treated me differently now, with respect, with admiration. "You did what most of us are too scared to do," one of them said. "You stood up to family." The Senior Advocacy Center asked me to become a volunteer counselor. Once a month, I met with elderly victims of financial fraud. I helped them document their cases, connected them with lawyers, showed them they weren't alone. I discovered I was good at it. All those years of keeping meticulous records had prepared me for something meaningful. I even started traveling. Not extensively. I was still 73 with arthritis in my knees, but I saw the Grand Canyon with Sarah. I visited David in Portland and explored the city. I spent Christmas in Seattle with James and his family. I went places and did things I'd denied myself for a decade. I even started dating. Nothing serious, just coffee dates with a widower named Frank I'd met at the senior center. He made me laugh. We compared stories about our late spouses without sadness, just fond memory. My grandchildren asked me to speak at their schools about standing up for yourself, about documentation, about the difference between family loyalty and enabling criminals. Life wasn't just good. It was full. The Sacramento Bee ran a feature story about my case. Local widow fights back against elder fraud, wins. Other media picked it up. I did a few interviews, hoping my story might help others recognize the warning signs. Letters arrived from across the country. Other widows, other victims, thanking me for speaking out. Some shared their own stories of family betrayal. Others asked for advice. I answered every single one. I ran into Diana once, about 18 months after her release from prison. I was at the grocery store where she worked, buying flowers for Raymond's grave. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The store was quiet. I was in the floral section, comparing bouquets when I saw her. She was in aisle 7, stocking canned goods. She wore a store uniform that was too big for her. Her hair was streaked with gray now. Her hands looked rough and worn. Our eyes met across the store. For a moment, neither of us moved. I thought she might approach me. Maybe apologize again. Maybe try to say something. But she just looked away and continued working, her movements mechanical and tired. I bought my flowers and left. I felt nothing. No triumph, no pity, no anger. She was just a stranger who'd once hurt me and was now facing the consequences of her choices. A few months later, Harold, Raymond's brother, who'd tried to convince me to drop the case, called to apologize. "I should have believed you from the start," he said. "I chose family loyalty over truth. That was wrong. Diana's been calling me from prison, asking for money. Now I see what you saw all along. She's manipulative. She hasn't changed." I appreciated the apology, but I didn't need it anymore. My life had moved forward. The most meaningful moment came in a letter from a widow in Ohio. She'd read my story in a newspaper article. Her brother-in-law had been taking money under similar pretenses, fake medical bills for his sister, her late husband's sister. "Your case gave me the courage to investigate," she wrote. "I discovered a fraud similar to yours. Because of you, I fought back. I won. You showed me it was possible. Thank you." I framed that letter and put it next to Raymond's photo on my mantle. This was my legacy now. Not the woman who'd been defrauded. The woman who'd fought back. The woman who'd shown others it was possible. Last spring, I planted a new rose bush in the garden, a variety called Courage. It blooms deep red and strong, like justice. Looking back now at 74, I've learned some important lessons. Trust, but verify. Document everything. Family doesn't mean automatic trust. Real family wouldn't exploit you. And you're never too old to fight for what's right. I'm 74 now. I'm surrounded by people I trust. My money is my own. My life is my own. Raymond's roses bloom every year, faithful and beautiful. I have coffee in the garden every morning. I help other victims find their voice. I spend time with my children and grandchildren. I travel. I laugh with Frank over terrible jokes. I live. The house is mine. The money is mine. The future is mine. And if family betrayed you the way Diana betrayed me, I want you to know something. You can fight back. You should fight back. Document everything. Save every receipt, every text message, every email. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let shame or fear or family pressure stop you from seeking the truth. And when you find that truth, don't back down. Get a lawyer, file a police report, stand up in court and tell your story. Justice is possible. I'm living proof. So I ask you now, if someone you trusted betrayed you like this, would you fight back? What would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story helped you, if it gave you courage or hope or just made you think, please share it. Someone else might need to hear it. Subscribe for more stories of people who refused to be victims, who stood up, who fought back, who won. Thank you for listening to my story. This is Anita Martin from Sacramento, California, and I want you to remember, it's never too late to fight for what's right.